Hello, and welcome to Writers, Readers, and the Stories We Love. We are here for our 12th episode. It's been a little bit over a year since we started, but with a couple months off here and there. This is the official sort of 1 year, 12 month um, gathering of doing this.
For
So
us.
it's been a lot of fun. Thank you to those who have watched from more or less the beginning. And if anyone is joining us new for the first time, I'm Josh Gauthier. I write things and make things up, and I'm a librarian to pay the bills, which is also kind of fun because I just get books all the time anyway. I'm here with my co-host, Daien Sanchez. Do you want to say hi?
Hi. I also write things sometimes. Sometimes I just don't write things. Read a lot. And yeah. I can't believe it's been 12 episodes already. I'm really proud of us for sticking with it this long.
Yeah, I mean, for something that started on a whim during work from home, like this has turned into something so much more. And it's been so much fun to be able to do this. I mean, us together from different states, and then all the guests we've been able to have on over this time as well. Yeah, so for those who have followed along, we're doing something a little bit different today. You may have noticed we don't have a guest joining us. That's not because just no one wanted to talk to us, but we have spent we've spent so much time talking about other people's work, but part of this is really just a celebration of the books that we love as well. Diane's background.
We're going to talk more about other people's work
Yeah,
today.
but Diane's background represents it better than mine does, but we read a lot of books as well. They've been formative from like Magic Treehouse books when we were kids up to everything that we read nowadays. So we wanted to talk a little bit about favorite titles, favorite authors, and just kind of share with everyone who's listening some of the stuff we love. And then if you're tuned in live, feel free to join in the comments. If you like any of the same authors we do, we'll just celebrate and geek out about books together. And if anything that we talk about reminds you of something else that people absolutely have to read, we always love hearing more recommendations. So this is just a great time to talk about books and why we love them and what they do well, and especially the ones that we keep coming back to over and over again. So yeah, we'll kind of be all over the place, different genres, age groups, styles. And we will not remotely get through everything that we have to talk about today because
It was hard enough to narrow this down to something that we might be able to get through. Right before this, I was running around pulling books off the shelves. And I don't have all the books I want to talk about. And then I have too many books that I want to talk about. And so I literally could go book by book and tell you why you should read this, but we don't have that kind of time, unfortunately. So
yeah, so this will be a randomly curated selection based on what we had on our shelves and what sparks our interest in the moment. But I think with that being said, let's just kind of dive into awesome books and why we love them.
Yeah, you go first. You go first.
Let's see if I can avoid throwing mine all over the floor. So for anyone who has followed along, Diane and I are both graduates of the Stonecoast MFA program. And so a good kind of starting point is to shout out some other Stonecoast grads and faculty who I am just huge fans of their work. So it's an honor and a pleasure to have learned from and alongside some of these people. But David Anthony Durham, if for anyone who, yeah, this is historical fiction about the Spartacus Rebellion. But also he writes fantasy in addition to historical fiction. And if you like just epic narratives and big characters and adventure and a little bit grittier storytelling, he is just phenomenal and delivers just a really well-honed story. So absolutely worth your time. And actually, both of these were mentors I had at Stonecoast as well. Theodora Goss, with magical realism and fantasy, and this is retellings of mad scientist daughters from classic literature. So Jekyll, Hyde, Moreau, their daughters get together, form a league, solve mysteries alongside Sherlock Holmes and other characters from classic literature, and just it's adventures and monsters, and it's phenomenal and fun. And Dora Goss is like anything with her name on it, just pick it up and read it, and you'll be better off for having done so. And one more, this is actually a fellow grad of the program, R.M. Romero and the Doll Maker of Krakow. When I tell you this book is beautiful and heartbreaking and amazing, I mean that in the strongest sense. It's a mix of a Holocaust novel and a fantasy story. And so there's a doll from the land of dolls who is brought into the real world by a doll maker in Krakow during World War II. And together they are trying to just navigate kind of the horrors of the Nazi rule and the Holocaust, and just trying to like make sense of what does it mean to look for good and hope when everything in the world is going terribly wrong. It's lyrical, it's incredible. It's written for a middle grade audience, but it strikes a really great blend of hopeful and magical that makes it accessible to kids, but at the same time doesn't shy away from what the Holocaust was. And she strikes that balance just so perfectly, and I love this book. So
it's a beautiful cover. I just kept looking at that cover. It's stunning. Yeah. And I think what we're gonna end up doing is putting all these titles onto a list and posting that under the video, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of books that you recommend that I'm going to want to read, and just so everyone else also doesn't have to scribble down everything really fast as we go through it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So stay tuned after, within a few days after this video ends, I'll try to get a list up across social media so you can find all.
We'll try to keep it short. We'll try to keep it short, but I might throw in a few extra titles in there that we don't get the chance to talk about. So.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with, well, you guys know I'm a romance writer, and so I just read a lot of romance, all kinds of romance. But the first romance book that I read it's like that new adult category, but it was contemporary romance. It was more like grown up, and this was the first book that introduced me to that made me fall in love with the genre. And that's why I write romance. So thank you very much, Samantha Young, and your On Dublin Street series, because I read this and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Like, that is love, and that is what I want to write. And I think you're right. I think you read this already, right? I recommended this to you.
That is the first romance novel I ever read.
I pushed enough to get him to read romance, and now he reads a lot of romance, actually. Yeah. Sometimes
that was the one that did it right there. So
I mean, I think it's beautifully written. The characters are amazing. There is the tragic backstory that 9 times out of 10 all romance books have, and there's so much growth. And I think there's seven in the series or something like that, but it follows along like the side characters from this book and a couple other ones that get introduced later on, and it's just amazing. You guys need to read it. If you've never read romance and you're not sure if you're gonna like it or not, or it's just you have all these like preconceived notions about it and the cliche, I mean, it's a good book. It's a really good book. So I recommend.
I will throw out that depending on your taste, the Dublin Street series, particularly the early ones, are a little bit on the spicy side, as they say nowadays.
I'm having trouble. Okay, I will say that yes, it's not a fade to black type of story, but I don't consider it spicy. I've had that argument.
Compared to some of the other romance on the shelves, it is on that half of the spectrum.
I would give it a 1 for spiciness, just because it's descriptive and not that fade to black. The fade to black gets 0 on the spicy scale. So, but yeah, a must read. Anything Samantha Young writes, to be honest, is a must read. Whether it's romance, I think she's done a couple less conventional romances, but yeah, anything that she writes is just it's a must read. As is this next author's. All of her Colleen Hoover, all of her books are a must-have. And It Ends With Us. It's probably one of my favorites from hers. And it's, again, beautifully written. It tackles real life situations and heartbreak and finding yourself and love again. And it's beautiful. It's gonna make me cry just thinking about it, because I sobbed with this book. I sobbed at the ending of this book, by the way. So in case, if you don't like to cry when you read, then probably don't pick up Colleen Hoover.
Yeah,
it's like sad and happy and the kind of tears that you like, want in a way. So
yeah, no, Hoover's books are an emotional roller coaster, and that one in particular puts you through it, but in the way that great and well-handled stories really can.
yeah, it's like deep, and you're rooting for all the characters, even the one that traditionally is like the villain, but there's no villains really in romance. And I think it's being turned into a movie.
I think
Actually,
I've heard something about that, yeah.
by Justin Balderini, I think is his last name, the guy from Jane the Virgin, which, yeah, and he did 5 Feet Apart too. So I think he's turning this into a movie, and I'm very excited about that because he did a good job with 5 Feet Apart, and I'm hoping they don't mess this up.
Yeah, done right, that'll be quite the watch.
Yeah, it will be. I want it to be as like gut-wrenching, and I just want to sit in the movie theater and just sob. That is what I want to get from this movie. And if I get that, then they did a great job. So
It's funny how often that's exactly what we want out of our storytelling. It's like, I want you to destroy me emotionally.
yes, I want you to like reach in, rip my heart out, and then piece it back together by the end of that. And she does that quite well, yeah. Let me tell you. She does that. And the other book I want to talk about really quick before we move on, I don't have it, so let me see if I can pull it up on my iPad really quick. But it is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. Honestly, any of her books are also like this, because she also writes about real life situations that are sometimes hard to talk about or to read about. And see if you guys can see that. Where is it? Oh, you can't see that. Okay, well, it's called Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. And again, it's emotional and it's profound, and sometimes it's hard to read. There are parts that are very difficult to kind of get through. But it's part of this, like, it's not one of those that doesn't have a purpose to it. That's just touching on dark topics because they want to touch on it, and not because there's a whole, story and growth and journey that's tied into it. But this one is, and it's super real and it's super raw. And again, one of those really gutting ones that like ripped my heart out and then just pieced it back together by the end of it. So yeah. I love her books as well.
Yeah, and so I mean, we're starting on kind of the more intense side of romance, the very emotional piece of it. And
those are like the really good ones. And yeah. Not that I'm going to tell you, not all of Colleen Hoover's books will probably leave you crying on the floor and on a reading slump, because there's something as good as that. But they are all great books that you should definitely pick up and read. So.
Yeah, and Colleen Hoover that did some young adult romance as well, right? November 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
November 9. There's another one. I have a couple more here by her, but I don't think those are. Oh, I have November 9. Actually. Okay. I also have All Your Perfects, which is also a great one. Yeah. I think Regretting You is YA.
I don't know if I've read that one yet.
I think it's set in high school, which would make it considered YA. Honestly, you can pick up any Colleen Hoover book, and she had one recently that was not as, I think it was a Verity. That's not her typical writing. It was
more of a thriller.
Yeah, it was more. I mean, it was romance, but thriller, and yeah, so range.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think while we're on romance, I'll shout out a couple others. I know you pulled a Christina Lauren
I
for
still
us.
have like 4 romance books to get through.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah, well, I'll do a couple more of my favorites, and then
Yeah.
we'll jump back to you. But yeah, no, Christina Lauren, on the slightly more upbeat side of things. Um, they're actually a writing duo, Christina and Lauren. Um,
I didn't know
and
when I picked up the first book.
right.
I think you told me that, and I was like, oh, interesting.
But they're very like contemporary, especially their earlier couple romances, like My Favorite Half Night Stand and Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. Incorporates like text messages and friend groups and just like lots of friendly banter, which is one of the things that grabbed me very early on in reading their books, which is like all the side characters and the interactions were really fun, along with a really sweet romance kind of in the middle of it. So they're really good. And Lisa K. Adams, or Lisa, I'm afraid I don't know how to say her first
I
name.
say Lisa. Yeah.
Lisa K. Adams and the Bromance Book Club.
Also have up there.
Is this group of like A-list celebrity guys in Nashville who form a romance book club in order to understand their partners better and to be better men. And so like it's feminist and it's funny and it's romantic and it's just, the series is great, and there's a slightly different genre trope worked into each one. So one's a sports romance, one's like a spy thriller romance, romantic comedies, all depending on like what book they're reading at the time. And that's another one that's getting an adaptation coming up before too long, which will be interesting. So
it should be good. What do you call it? Yeah, so Lisa's or Lisa's, however you want to pronounce her name, and Christina Lauren, those are more of those like what people like to call like easy reads. And they're just fun, like reads that you do like for fun, that they might not emotionally gut you, but they're still very entertaining and you'll laugh. I think the last Christina Lauren book I read was In a Holidays, and I found it very funny. It's like Groundhog Day type of thing where she just wakes up and same day keeps happening over and over and over again. And I found it to be very entertaining. If a little short, I wanted it to keep going because I found it very funny. But yeah, she is actually an author that he introduced to me mostly because I've heard about them, but I never actually picked up a book until you told me to. And yeah, if I could get Josh to read romance, I can get anyone to read romance. So one book I'm reading right now, so I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't know how it ends, but Beach Read by Emily Henry. So my sister got me to read it because she's going through all the like Good Morning America book club reading lists and stuff like that. And this was on one of those lists. And let me tell you that I'm only halfway through. I love this book. I feel so understood as a writer because the 2 main characters are writers and they're in that like writer's block slump and nothing's coming. And they do a bet to write the type of stories that the other writes. And she is a rom-com writer and he is more of that like strict like literary fiction, what people call literary fiction. And so they're each trying to write what the other writes, and it's not just about the books they're writing, it's about obviously their lives, but I just feel so understood as an author. So I love this book so far. I will let you know how I feel about it after I read the second half, but I would already recommend this to anyone. So
yeah, I haven't gotten that one yet either, but everyone I've heard mention it has loved it. So
it's been on a lot of lists because it came out this year, I think, and so it's been around the talk of the town type of thing. So it's a must read, I think, for anyone who likes romance, I guess. Let me see which one to do next. Okay, another author that I just love everything she writes, Jennifer Armentrout. This is, I don't have a lot of her books, or I have ones, but they're not the first book in the series, so I don't want to show them. This is her Dark Elements White Hot Kiss. It's an urban fantasy, paranormal, and there's demons involved, and wardens, which are half gargoyles, which was kind of weird at first because they turn into stone, but it was still very good. And I mean, she did the Half-Blood series. She does a lot of YA paranormal books, and they're all great. If you like YA paranormal books, you should definitely read her. And I think her writing style is just like, yeah, all her characters are very witty. The side characters are amazing. It's just, you get addicted. So like you'll sit down and open the book and you won't put it down until you're done. And I think it's part of that. I really enjoy YA, all that like teenage angst and drama that's like, you're like so dramatic. Like that is not a problem that normal teenagers have, but these do. And it's addicting. They're swoon-worthy guys, like definitely book boyfriends, all of them. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested in reading, I mean, his name is Roth. How, like the name itself is just hot. So like, I mean, and the other one's name is Zane and Roth. You can't tell me they're not hot names. Like it's just, yeah. So Jennifer Armentrout. She also writes contemporary romance under the pen name Jaylin, which I also very much recommend. So yeah. I think I've told you to read Jennifer Armentrout, and I don't think you have. So
I've read Armentrout. Yeah, I haven't read that one, but no, I did. You
probably read her like romance pen name one, Jaylin.
I haven't done the Jaylin ones yet.
Oh, so which one did you read that was hers?
And what's the Onyx, the alien.
Oh yes, Onyx,
Rabbit.
Opal. I have those two. Origin. Oh, I think it's called the Origin
Lux,
series.
the Lux series.
The Lux series. There we go.
Yeah.
And those are aliens, by the way.
Yeah. I read
hot aliens.
Most of those. I read one of her romantic thrillers, and then I read I was spacing on the name of it because I didn't prepare this one. But she's got a gothic contemporary romance series with a group of brothers, and I read the first one in that series as well. Yeah, she's another one of those ones with range across genre and age.
Yeah, and some of you guys might have heard of her. Her new book, what's the first one called? From Blood and Ash. So that's kind of been very popular lately, and I'm not going to get into that series, but you might have heard of her from that series, and that it's the same author. Mm-hmm. But I will say that her other series are much better than Blood and Ash, and that's all I'm going to say. So.
And yeah, I'll toss in one more romance author I just thought of too. Helen Huang wrote The Kiss Quotient and The Bride Test, which are another fun romantic romance series, contemporary. But one thing that kind of sets hers apart is that she writes characters on the autism spectrum in the leads, and then I believe they're also many of them are Korean as well, and so it's different kind of cultural and personal perspectives that she writes really effectively into these stories, and just they're so sweet and beautiful. I believe the third one's coming out this year or next, and I'm very excited for that as well because her books are just phenomenal. I
have The Kiss Quotient, and I think Cameron gave it to me, and I'm very sorry, Cameron. I have not gotten to it yet, so it's there. It's just waiting for me to pick it up. Yeah.
Definitely worth checking out, maybe after beach read.
I have so many books on this bookshelf that I haven't read, and it's just very hard. It's so hard.
I mean, yeah, that's the struggle with it. I don't have a good setup to actually put all my books in the background, but I've got multiple shelves in the next room full of books I have not yet read and fully intend to. So
I still have a lot of romance books to talk about, but let's move on to
Yeah. Quick shout out to Erin is in the comments. Erin was our guest just a couple months ago. And she just
Hi.
saying how much she appreciates the recommendations. It's one of the things that she misses about Stonecoast. Which I know every residency we walked away with like lists of new books to just go check out. And many of which we purchased, and I'm still trying to get through some of the things I
Because
had
of
recommended.
course they would set up a mini bookstore for us. I mean, you can't put a table full of books in the middle of like 100 people who all they do is read and write and not expect them to just buy everything on there. So
We just go running off with mountains of books constantly. But I'll stick on young adult for another moment. This is one I read last year, recently. It's fairly recent. Chloe Gong's These Violent Delights.
oh, you read, oh, that's right, you read it.
Yeah, and I know I talked about this, I think, one of our previous live streams, but it's Romeo and Juliet in 1920s gangster China. And so and also fantasy. So like it's just her sense level writing is incredible, but at the same time, like I love Shakespeare and I love fantasy and like warring families and doomed romance and all these different things going on. It's so much fun. I mean, like gangster 20s just glamour is also a great setting, and so it's got all these things going for it. And then she just takes it in surprising and fun places. And I believe that sequel is coming out later this year as well, or next year, soon. Oh, Aaron just chimed in, like the Scholastic book fair for adults. Yes, yeah.
Essentially, yes.
Turn us
Yeah.
loose and we will buy all the books all the time.
That was my favorite day of the year while at school, was the Scholastic Fair. Would be there for like 2 or 3 days.
I've seen people say online that adulthood is just chasing the high of the Scholastic book fair for the rest of our lives.
So good. I would buy, I think in elementary school, it was like the Magic Tree House books and stuff like that. Like I would run to get the new one that had just come out and probably buy a couple bookmarks, but I always left with something. So
Yeah, no, even now, the Quiet City Books is one of my local bookstores here, and I'll go in just to talk to the owner about like events we have coming up and stuff. I always walk out with a minimum of one book, even for like a 10-minute visit.
you can't walk into a bookstore and not buy a book. There's thousands of books in there. There's gonna be one that catches your interest, at least, that you can't walk out of a bookstore without buying a book. It should be against the law.
But yeah, I'll stick on fantasy just a little bit more. Brandon Sanderson, for those who read fantasy, yeah, we'll talk about this. Or if someone is looking for an entry point to fantasy, Sanderson is a great one, with like world building and complex magic systems, but it's also really accessible. Like it's not the deep kind of layered narratives that like Game of Thrones is, where there's like 500 characters to keep track of. They're very like fast-paced and fun, and all of his adult books are interlinked into a Cosmere, where you don't have to understand all the connections, but the more you read, the more you'll start to see how these different pieces fit together. How he keeps it in his head, I do not understand, because the man is brilliant to manage all of these connecting threads. But then each book on its own is just excellent as well and very fun, which Daien will be reading at some point in the near future, I'm sure.
Not because I haven't wanted to. It's just been a very stressful few months. Okay. And
yeah, no,
I feel like it's one of those, I want to like it. And I feel like it's one of those, I need to be like mentally prepared to like just be fully invested in the story. And I just have not been mentally there. So,
that's fair.
but I will get to it, I promise.
Yes. And then another different sort of fantasy, I will recommend Neil Gaiman all day, every day. One of my favorite writers and just good writing influence. Neverwhere is the first one I read. about a man who falls out of reality and finds like a fantastic city under London and just goes on an adventure with the in between kind of not ghosts exactly, but non-existent people outside of experienced reality in London. But just fantastic in the sense of like there's kind of magic brimming at all the seams and there's always things to be discovered. And just super fun and wonderful. So if you haven't read Neil Gaiman, you should. That goes basically to anybody, no matter what you read. And then I'll just toss out one more. Another of my favorite authors of ever is Elizabeth Hand, who we also had as a guest a few months ago. This is book one of her cast.
Also our mentor. So.
Yes, also a mentor, went to Ireland with us. But this is the start of her Castaneri series, which is a crime noir. She's done historical fiction, she's done fantasy, she's done horror. So kind of whatever you want to find, but another one, beautiful writing, incredible characters, great storytelling. I own almost every book she's ever written, and I'm working my way through them with zero regrets about having these. So I will read something purely for her name being on the cover.
I've been sitting here listening, obviously, but also scrolling through my iPad because it's where I have most of my books. And there's just so many. There's just so many romance books I want to recommend. And so someone watching this who has never read romance before, I beg of you, please pick up one of these romance books and tell me what you think at the end of it, because there's Price of a Kiss by Linda Cage. It's an entire series. It's again one of those in that neo-adult category because they're in college. The characters are very strong and again have like difficult choices to make. The first one, she has a psycho ex and he is a gigolo trying to take care of his special needs sister and his mom. And the characters are witty and they're strong, and I just can't say enough. And all the books in that series are like that too. Then you have The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Again, anything by Elle Kennedy. It's just, again, college setting, athletes. I mean, I could go on and on talking about all the romance books that I think people need to read.
I think I have The Deal on my tablet.
You should, because I've told you about it multiple times, I'm sure. There's also, I mean, some of you guys might have heard of this one, Red, White, and Royal Blue, because it was very popular, by Casey McQuiston, and it's basically the two sons, son of the president of the United States, so woman president, and the second one is son of the royal family in England, and there's drama, there is spiciness, there is just everything you could want, so that's good. In terms of YA romance, The Selection was one of my favorites when it came out. It's actually being turned into a Netflix show. And I'm very nervous about it because I love the books and I don't want them to mess it up. And essentially, like, okay, I don't like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. I've watched it, yes. Do I enjoy it? No. But this is basically like a much better version of that because I think it's like 15 girls competing for the hand of the prince. It's just very good. Yeah, I'm just gonna add all these romance books onto the list that we're gonna post because I can't narrow it down any more than that. Kendall Ryan is very good. I mean, it just depends. Ooh, there's okay, so Emma Scott is a fairly new author that I've discovered, and one of my favorite books from her is called In Harmony. You guys are probably not gonna be able to see it, but these are her books. Yeah, you can't see them. So In Harmony. And it's set in high school, so it's YA. And these two kids, they're in a Hamlet play for school. And it's not a retelling, but it's just it connects a lot to the play. Their situations, and it's a very touching story. I cried, and you're gonna say that I cry over every book, and sometimes it's possible, but it's because it's worth it. Like, it is worthy of the tears. Okay. And then the last author I'm gonna recommend is Mariana Zapata, which I also recently discovered. And I think she has like 10 books published. And when I tell you I devoured all 10 books, I devoured all 10 books. The only thing I will say, which I told Josh when I told him he had to read her, is that you should read them in order of which they were published, because I didn't like the first one and the second one as much as I did the others. And it's not a series, but there is like peaks of characters here or there throughout some of the other books. And it's just so much nicer when you know who they are, like what their story was beforehand. So, but that is the last author that I'm going to recommend that is purely romance. And if you want more, just let me know.
Yeah.
Or just go on my Goodreads, because I have them separated by genres. Just go to my romance shelf and you'll find like 500 books probably that you could.
Yeah, no, same thing for me. I've rated and ranked a lot of Goodreads books, so if you want to see the full kind of range of what we've got, that's a great place to find them. Zapata is an interesting one too, because like romance is known for being a shorter genre, like relatively quick books, and she's like, I'm just gonna throw that rule out the window. Here's a 120,000 word romance novel.
And so I've noticed, so I read a lot on my iPad, and I change like the font size and stuff like that to like make it bigger. So I never realized how short or how long books are until I see them in person. And when I saw her book in person, it was like a friggin' Harry Potter sized type of thing. And I was like, this did not take me that long to read. And but it works. It's like twice the size of a typical romance book, and it still works.
Yeah, it's not just fluff that's there for the sake of being there.
Yeah.
Like, she uses it for the story. But I remember I got the first one in at the library. I was like, this is one book, and like it's not even
dictionary.
It's not even big font. Like, it was tiny font and like 500 pages.
Yeah. And all of her books are slow burn. So if you're the type of reader who just like they meet day one and by day three they're like in love and it's a happily ever after, her books are not going to be it. These are very much like a slow burn, but it's that it makes you all the more like invested in these characters and their relationship, and like it works. And I think the length of it works because she takes that time to like flesh out the characters. And again, it doesn't feel like from chapter 1 and then in chapter 5 we're supposed to believe that they're soulmates type of thing. So
yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised when I discovered her, and I'm very anxiously awaiting her next book, because I read them all in like a week and I was like, well, now what? So
yeah. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you are a character driven reader, and so like you really like developed characters that you can get invested in, and you aren't reading romance, definitely take the time to check it out, because romance succeeds or fails on its characters alone, pretty much. And so romance authors are great at creating these people and making you care about them very early on, and just get invested in their stories. And I mean, all the ones we're talking about, like, characters have been the standout in what we've been saying.
yeah, they're character driven books. There's no like world building that they can fall back on for certain areas, or like the plots aren't as complex as like a fantasy novel. So it is, the characters make or break the book. There's no other way around it. So yeah.
And if you're on the side of like just feeling that romance isn't your thing, but you haven't tried it, one of the things I will always recommend is just like reading outside of your comfort zone can be great to see how other people tell types of stories, particularly in romance. Like, how do you write a relationship between two people over 300 pages? How do you make a reader care about what happens to them when you already know pretty much what the ending is going to be? Because in romance, the ending is more or less assured, but it's a fantastically well-received genre that we keep going back to, and lots of readers do, because of that journey. And so how do they tell that journey in such a compelling way?
It's the most popular, the most what do you call it? The most profitable genre, and it's for a reason. And yes, it has its cliches, and people judge it for that, but I don't. It's wholesome and like heartwarming, and it has gotten me through so many tough times. And so I'm getting emotional talking about it, but not to say that the other genres and like fantasy and sci-fi and literary fiction and all that isn't worthy or like as popular or anything. It's just that the romance genre is popular for a reason. These books keep getting on these bestseller lists and being converted into movies and TV shows and everything for a reason. And so
yeah. And it's a genre grounded in hope as well. And especially after 2020 and 2021, we can all use a bit of happiness and hope right now. And the romance genre is great for that because it always believes that love can win out in the end. And that
the journey might be tough, but in the end, love conquers all.
Exactly.
Okay? So,
which is
it's people. I mean, it is kind of it's a cliche, obviously, to people, but it's just you can learn, and especially as a writer, I feel like if you're a writer, regardless of what genre you write in, I feel you have to read at least one romance book, and you can learn so much, I think, from how the characters are written in romance books that you can apply into your own. So, highly recommend.
Yes, Josh and Daien recommend romance.
And recommends romance because I did.
Yes,
and he started reading romance. He's even writing romance now because of me. And so when that book gets published and you guys pick it up and fall in love with it, you can thank me. Okay. Yes.
All right, I'm going to change gears a little bit, but speaking of trying things that people, there it is, that people might not naturally go to. Poetry is something else that kind of scares people sometimes. And I don't read a ton of poetry, but I have found certain poets that I've really, really enjoyed. So I wanted to just kind of highlight a couple real quick. Billy Collins is incredibly well known in poetry, but if you like funny poems and heartfelt poems and also just written in very accessible language, like I think very often when we think of poetry, we think of like Shakespearean sonnets and shall I compare thee to a summer's day. And there is like the romantic poets and stuff do that and are great for what they are. Collins is very conversational and accessible. So there's nothing overly difficult in it, and you can just kind of pick it up and read it for fun. He's got a whole poem called The Lanyard about a kid making a lanyard at summer camp for their mother and how it's like the repayment for everything that the mother has done for them over the years. And it's funny and it's sweet, it's beautiful, it's great. So check out Billy Collins. And then another Stonecoast person, Martina Spada, also very accessible, a little bit more serious with there are some moments of humor, but kind of politically minded, dealing a lot with immigration and politics and society, but very accessible. This book I bought at Stonecoast, went home and I was like, I'll just read a couple poems, I'll come back to it later. And then fast forward and I read the entire book in one sitting just because I didn't want to put it down and stop. And it's that gripping and engaging, and I love his work. And if you ever have the chance to hear him read his own work, it's worth it. Just his reading voice is remarkable, and his delivery of just the subtle humor and the seriousness of it. So like romance, check out poetry. You can learn from how poets tell their stories. It's my I write very long. I like words and I like using all the words. Whereas on the flip side, poetry makes every word count, and so it's a great place to learn what a single turn of phrase can do, and how powerful it can be. So even if you don't end up writing your own poetry, just seeing how poets work is remarkable. They're artists in their own way. There's nothing else quite like it. So
I haven't read poetry much in the past. But I will check out that first book that you recommended. So I'm trying to see what book I should talk about next. Well, article. So if you like YA, this is dystopian. So this was like during that dystopian craze that was happening. We had this, and we had Divergent and like Hunger Games and all these books. And this was probably one of the less popular ones, but so good. I remember Article 5. It was there are moral statutes of the United States of America, and so Article 5 is, I'm just gonna read it from the Bible. Article 5 is children are considered valid citizens only when conceived by a married man and wife. And so like, if the parents were married when you were a kid, then you're not a citizen. And I remember, I think this came out when I was maybe a freshman in high school or something. Again, it was during that craze. And I enjoyed it a lot more, I think, than I probably enjoyed Hunger Games. And I loved Hunger Games, so that probably tells you enough about this book. There is also Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. It's a romance, I guess, but it's a paranormal romance. I consider it more like fantasy than romance, even though it's centered around romance. But another series that devoured. It's like it's fast paced, and I mean, look at the cover. There are angels involved. Angels with wings and shirtless angels, as you can see by the cover. So again, it was Hush Hush, Crescendo. Oh yeah, I don't remember. But I've read it like 3 times. And I think I read them like a year and a half ago, and I still loved them as much as I did when I was in high school. So it's not a lyrical masterpiece, obviously, but it's a type of YA writing that you expect, and the characters that you just fall in love with and are obsessed with, and which were real. So yeah, I'm trying to go through my fantasy. Ooh, if you like wolves, if you like werewolves, Quinn Loftus and her Grey Wolves series, long as hell, fantastic if you love werewolves. And there's also that is it Samantha Young that did that new werewolf that I know I told you to read.
Yes.
What's it called? I can picture the cover. Something about vengeance. One of the books has a vengeance in the title.
We can find it for the list, maybe.
Very good. Maas. You guys already know who I'm talking about, Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, who we have talked about at length before in some of our previous episodes.
And again, who introduced you to Sarah J. Maas? I did.
Yes.
Okay, at Stonecoast. I would talk about her to anyone who would listen, and even the ones who didn't want to listen. And now we love it. So what have we learned is that my recommendations are always good. Okay.
And
Josh's
usually. He's
had a few like hiccups where I have questioned things that he recommends, where I don't think I've read or watched anything that he recommended lately, just because I have lost all trust in the things that you make me watch. So
one bad experience, and suddenly my recommendations are out the window.
Very bad experience. Okay. I guess I don't read out. So a lot of the fantasy that I read is also very much tied with romance. It'll be like paranormal romance, or the fantasy is just it just revolves around the romantic plot. And so I don't know. I think Red Queen was really good when that came out, which I think is also being turned into a movie. Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Founded War of Hearts. That's a Samantha Young.
Okay, yeah.
Werewolf one, yeah. And she writes it as S. Young. And
Aaron's curious what the bad experience was. Do you want to answer or should I?
He made me watch Firefly. And the only thing I will say is that I almost cried every time we got, was it Thursdays that we watched it or something?
Yeah.
And I almost cried every time the day would come and I'd be like, no. It was never ending. I have not watched the movie yet. I'll be honest, I don't think I will.
No, you watched the movie with me. We did.
I watched the movie?
Yeah.
Well, see, I just blocked it from my brain completely.
You did say it was better than the show.
That's not saying much. Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't understand this cultural, like, I just don't, I don't understand it. It was like, it was worse than Manifest.
That's not saying that.
No, it was worse than, because Manifest, I've made it through 4 seasons and I'm still invested and will make it to the end because I have to know what is going on there. But Firefly, I could have stopped after like 2 episodes and been like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Erin says she's also not a fan, but she knows many people with great taste who are. And we can say whatever we want to about Joss Whedon right now as a creator, but I'm still very much a fan of Firefly as a cultural masterpiece. And we just have very different takes on exactly where it fits into everything. But on a note we can agree on, Jeff is also in the comments. He's saying that Sarah J. Maas is one of his favorite authors. Found Throne of Glass on his own, fell in love with the work, and still has to read the last 3 Throne novels and House of Earth and Blood.
Yeah, get ready. Get ready.
That's where all the intensity just rolls out.
You need to mentally prepare yourself for what happens in those last 3 books because see, I just got chills just thinking about it. And it's very popular. So like Josh and I are on TikTok a lot. And it is very popular on TikTok. Mass, especially Akatar, which is the Beauty and the Beast retelling. But every time I watch a video of someone talking about it, I get this or see a piece of fan art. Like that's all it takes
so much
for me to like wanna reread that entire series. And I'm gonna show you. I don't like that it's on the bottom shelf, but I organize my books alphabetically, and there's just no going around that. And that entire shelf is Sarah J. Maas. Yeah. I think, doesn't the second one of House of Earth and Blood come out this year?
I think, is it this year or the beginning of next year?
October, November. I thought that Crescent City came out. Well, there's no way that came out this year.
No, we got Silver Flames this year.
Oh, we got Silver Flames this year. Yeah, I think the second book does come out this year in November, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, that's one to look forward to.
But yeah, I would. I don't know when you read Throne of Glass, like the last book that you read, how long it's been, but you might want to reread. And if you haven't read Assassin's Blade, you better read Assassin's Blade, which is a novella. And my favorite, so for those of you who haven't read, I think, did I recommend to read it after book 3 or after book 4?
Assassin's Blade is after 3, between 3 and 4.
So even though it's a prequel, for those of you who haven't read Throne of Glass yet and will, which you should, do not read it first, Assassin's Blade, even though it's in order-wise, it's first, read it after book 3. Because it'll just, I feel like it makes more sense and emotionally and it's more effective, I think, when you read it in the order that it was published, essentially, which I think was after book 3. So, yeah.
All right, should we jump away from Mass for a moment, unfortunately?
Have to.
Yeah. I do want to shout out real quick, Clifford Royal Johns, who I did a book release event with a couple months ago. This is his first one, Walking Shadows. But if you like cyberpunk, sci-fi, crime noir, he writes just really fun characters that just they're very gripping and fast-paced, and just the complexity of the noir genre, where like one little thing kicks it all off, and then it just spirals into all sorts of other, basically fighting for survival and trying to figure out what's going on behind the scenes with someone who just doesn't want to be involved but has no choice. I've read both those books in one or two sittings each because they're that good and gripping.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention a sort of subgenre that I'm just assigning, which is this very, very pretty books.
Yeah.
So Winter's Tale was recommended to me when I started Stonecoast, and I just read The Night Circus. And they're absolutely lyrical, like reading page to page, they're just beautiful. And they're a little bit bigger, both of them. They're gorgeous books, and I will just read books with pretty language like all the time because they make me happy. And those are two of the standout ones. Like really good plot, interesting characters. It's got everything else going for it, but the language is just so rich and wonderful.
Yeah. The last book I'm going to recommend that I just pulled off the shelf is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. So what makes this book stand out, I just finished the third one. It took me a while to get to it, but I just finished it. What makes this book stand out is the main character in terms of inclusivity. So she has cerebral palsy, and it's not popular to have main characters, especially like main characters in fantasy who are supposed to be like badass and strong and everything, have a disability. And I think it was very well written. And yeah, so A Curse So Dark and Lonely. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, by the way. So I thought it was very well done. Mm-hmm.
I've only got a handful more, so I'll go sort of quickly-ish. I didn't get into graphic novels too much, but I have to mention Monstrous, in part because we were talking so much about fantasy as well. And so this is a dark fantasy graphic novel series, but it has the complexity and world building of any fantasy novel. It's just in graphic form. And the art in this series is some of the most incredible artwork.
You can tell just by the cover. That cover is stunning.
It's intricate. There's a city scene in the first one that I was trying to dig up. I don't have it handy, but just to see like the level of detail that goes into these scenes, it's remarkable, and the series is so good. It's still ongoing. But it's this young woman who starts out as a captive and a slave, and she's possessed by like this eldritch demon god thing that she doesn't want, and they don't really like each other. But her heritage is tied to this big war, and there's factions and magic powers and monsters trying to break into reality, and everyone just is caught up in all these different things as it kind of spirals on toward conflict. So if you are a fantasy fan or a graphic novel fan, or you just like really good art, check it out because it's fantastic. Did you have something else?
Yeah, because I feel like if I don't recommend it, my sister's gonna get mad at me. So, In 5 Years, which is also new by Rebecca Searle. It's part of the Good Morning America book club. It was a very profound read, and it's not a romance, but there's love involved still anyway, and it can be heartbreaking, but you at the end you end up understanding yourself better too, and seeing things differently and appreciating like what you have. And I would still I would recommend this book to people. It's just not my typical. I told my sister I wouldn't have picked this book by myself, but I'm glad she recommended it, and I did enjoy it. And I mean, I bought it, so that tells you enough. I don't really buy like hard copies of my books. unless I really, really like them, and then I'll buy it and I'll reread them. But I would recommend In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. And I think she has like 1 or 2 more books. I haven't gotten to them yet, but
I believe
her
so.
writing is beautiful as well. So it's my last book. Promise this time.
Jeff says that Curse so Dark and Lonely is on his list, so that is a forthcoming one. All right.
Once you finish the series, what you think?
Yeah, I need to read those ones as well. They're on my list too. I just haven't done them yet.
They were very popular too, so
yeah. To end us on a happy note, I'm going to turn toward horror real quick because
what a way to end the stream.
Yeah, I didn't plan it that way, but that's where we've ended up.
We started with like gut-wrenching, like emotional, like trauma. We're ending with horror. Yeah, what a way to start and end.
And with monsters, it'll be great. But yeah, so I've talked before, horror is a relatively recent genre for me where I wanted to learn more about it. And so I've got a few kind of the standout ones here. The Ballad of Black Tom is a retelling of H.P. Lovecraft, who, if you aren't familiar, Lovecraft is blatantly racist as a person and in his fiction, but also hugely influential in sort of the eldritch horror genre. And so lots of people have kind of taken his work and reclaimed it in various ways. And so the Ballad of Black Tom is one of those where it's a retelling of one of his stories from a new perspective and with kind of some more racial cultural awareness, and it got a little bit longer, but Victor LaValle in general is a great read, and this short novella, it's very, very good if you like monsters outside of reality and eldritch horror and all those, you know, super fun things. Paul Tremblay is a very well-known name in the horror community. If you want devastating, I finished this book and I was just like, I need sunshine and rainbows and flowers right now because I was just emotionally wrecked, but in the best way, because this book is amazing. It's about a gay couple and their daughter go vacationing in this cabin. And then this group of like armed strangers shows up out front demanding to like be let into their home, claiming that they are required in order to prevent the end of the world. So it's a home invasion novel, but with a twist, and just the way he delivers the characters and the weird unfolding story over the course of this. It plays with tropes a lot, up to an ending that is just incredible. So anything Paul Tremblay has done is great. This one does stand out. Bracken McLeod, this one is Stranded, which is a ship that gets stuck in the Arctic Circle in the ice. And then there are like ghosts around and this disease and people start going crazy. And so it's more of a survival thriller rather than horror in the sense of like monsters and gore. It's very just character driven and atmospheric. And it goes to very weird places, but in a really good way. Chuck Wendig is fairly well known, so I won't spend too much time here, but this is his Miriam Black series. If Miriam Black touches people skin to skin, she knows how they will die. And then this gets caught up in noir as well, where she decides that she wants to actually try to save somebody, even though it seems impossible to do so. And crime is involved, and it spirals into very interesting. It gets into kind of dark fantasy territory as well. This one in particular, very heavy, so know that going into it. But if you're up for something with a bit of emotional weight to it, it's very, very good. And the last one, I promise, which I don't actually have in hand. I got this from the library. What?
Shocker.
I know, right? Stephen Graham Jones is one of the best horror writers of the day. The Only Good Indians is one of his more recent ones. Night of the Mannequins is a novella, and then My Heart is a Chainsaw is coming out soon. Unique writing, incredible writing skill, very aware of the horror genre as a genre and doing really cool things with it. But if you want to read one horror novel, go pick up The Only Good Indians. It's amazing. It pulls off a literary jump scare in a way that I have almost never seen. And it's so effectively well done. And he's another one. I will grab his books. I will read them happily. And they're amazing. So I could keep going. We could both keep going, but
essentially we've given you guys enough books to occupy you for the next few months. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, follow us on Goodreads or social media. I'm sure we'll be talking about other books there. We'll be doing more live streams and we'll be recommending more stuff there as we read it as well. Any final words before we wrap up?
Read romance, please. Pick up a romance book. You guys don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, no, it is worth it. Try some romance, try some poetry, try some horror, try something you've never read before.
I mean, try everything at least once. And if you truly pick up a book and you just despise that genre, then okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean, honestly, even within the genres, like there's so much range that I think people are not always aware of. Like romance is everything from quick, silly rom-com to heart-wrenching emotionalness.
Like a sports romance or a like music romance where you're touring the world with this band and fall in love is not going to be the same as probably It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Yeah. But two very different stories. They're both romance, but two very different, takes on it. And yeah, if you don't like, at least I guess try one in each sub-genre category. And then if you can't find something that you like, then okay, fine. I will forgive you.
Even in horror, like you get bodies everywhere, splasher and gore, all the way to the other side. It's just completely atmospheric and character dread without violence, without a lot of mature content. It's the full spectrum for all of these. So,
and we read a lot. So just follow us on Goodreads and go through our bookshelves or send us a message. If you're like, hey, I want to read a book about this, any recs, and we will have a recommendation for you. Trust me. Okay. So.
And our final note, Jeff looked it up for us. House of Sky and Breath comes out January 2022, which is too far away because I want it now. But
I mean, it's what, like 6 months, 5 months, 6 months? Okay.
Yeah.
We made it this far.
It'll go by in a flash. We have to reread the first one anyway, so.
Oh my God. And that woman, like when I tell you, she had me sobbing over these characters that I had just met 2 pages before, and I was already sobbing.
Yeah.
Like that is how good she is. Okay, so.
All right. Yeah, we're a little past 4. We've talked a lot about books. Thank you to anyone who stuck around to listen to us for all this time. For Jeff and Aaron for joining in the conversation. It's always great to have people tune in and just be happy about books with us. I will get this whole list posted, and this entire talk will be up on Facebook and YouTube after the fact. If you want to go back and hear any of it, if you want to share it with anybody else who might be interested. And stay tuned. We're on social media, and we'll be back again in the future for more awesome writing books stuff, because we love doing this, and as long as you keep listening, we'll keep talking. So everyone enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next time.